Well, he's one of the candidates who does not have to face a primary on August the 10th. He received his convention's endorsement to run on the Democratic Party ticket for Attorney General, and we welcome George Jepsen to the program this afternoon. George, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dan. It's nice to be on your show.
George, it's a pleasure having you on the program. Let's start off with what kind of an Attorney General you would be if you win the general election.
Well, I share Dick Blumenthal's values, and I share his outlook on the job. You're there to stand up for protecting individual rights and the broader public good. I'll obviously bring my own personal style to the position, and but I'll be there fighting for consumers and for to level the playing field so that businesses can compete fairly. And some of my own special interests include a number of environmental issues and civil rights issues, but above all, you're there to protect the consumer.
Well, there's also, as you know, George, the criticism of Blumenthal that he's been too activist as an attorney general. What would you say to that?
I think that criticism is generally overblown. Dick has done some remarkable work for the state and for the country. The tobacco settlement, for example. It was activism that got him involved in that case. It was also activism that got him involved more recently in enforcing the social networking sites like Facebook and MySpace to crack down on pedophiles and sexual predators. So activism is, I think, generally a good thing. It's how you do it. I am acutely aware, and I want to stress this, that, and this is not an implicit criticism of Dick, I'm acutely aware that if the awesome power of that office is misdirected or misused, it can have a devastating impact on the life of an innocent person or destroy an honest business. And so I want to be, before you go in and you go after somebody, even an enforcement action, I really think you have to be absolutely sure about your facts.
Now, the Attorney General has been known to side with public employee unions. He'll appear at rallies or even unions from the private sector, such as Pratt & Whitney and AT&T, and that has drawn criticism from people who say, shouldn't the Attorney General be representing all of the people? How would you handle a situation like that?
Well, you're certainly entitled to take sides, and I've stood on picket lines and helped working families in the past myself. On the other hand, I've taken some heat for opposing unions from time to time, and so I bring my own approach, which is a balanced approach.
Such as, name an area where you oppose the unions.
I voted to overturn some arbitrated awards that I thought would were breaking the pattern that had been established in collective bargaining agreements for the state. That's when I was a legislator. And it's cost me politically.
Now, you were in the state legislature for, 8 terms?
Yes, 16 years.
And you also ran for governor, and you were chairman of the state Democratic Party at one time, right?
Yes, that's all true.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to get back to, because you mentioned Blumenthal and the tobacco settlement for just a moment. There are critics who say that money, most of it, was not used towards smoking cessation programs, that it went to the general fund, so the money was not used for its intended purpose, and also that Blumenthal made sure that his former law firm got the job. What would you say to that?
Several things. The scope of the settlement was so large that even under ideal circumstances, the overwhelming majority of the money would not have been used for smoking cessation programs. It is certainly true, and this is not Dick Blumenthal's fault, that especially in recent years, virtually all the money has been used to plug the budget gap, and I find that regrettable because I think that there should have been more money put into smoking cessation programs. With respect to the allegation, the charge that Dick Blumenthal gave the job to his old law firm, I know for an absolute fact that virtually no credible law firm, no large law firm, was interested in the litigation. It was viewed as a terrific long shot when it was when Dick first brought it up. He went to a number of the large firms, and you got to have a good firm. It's not just anybody who can handle litigation like this. He made the rounds to various credible law firms, and he was turned down in every case because it was believed that the payout on the thing, if it ever occurred at all, would be 10 years to 20 years in duration, and again, you'd be putting up all this upfront money with no guarantee of return. So it was only after he had gone everywhere else that he turned to his old law firm.
Talking to George Jepsen, who's the Democratic Party candidate for Attorney General. Now, we've heard, George, that small business is the backbone of this country, that small business is probably the backbone of business here in Connecticut. You've had a relationship with small business. Can an Attorney General help small business?
Yes, it can, and I've always had a very positive relationship with the business community in the state. As a legislator, I was given what's called the Minuteman Award, which is, I think only one or two of them are given out in a given year, which is the award for from the National Federation of Independent Businesses, which is the representative of small businesses in the state. So, you got to have a level. An Attorney General can help keep a level playing field. If, for example, a business is cheating by misclassifying employees as subcontractors or paying them cash under the table, it means that the other small businesses can't compete against a business like that, which is a markedly lower cost structure. So keeping the playing field level so that honest businesses have a shot at the work is one important way of helping small businesses. So that's an example right there.
During the Rowland scandals, you were proactive towards the governor in talking about his ethical lapses. We see now the current Attorney General is doing everything within state statutes to revoke the pension of former Hartford Mayor Eddie Perez. If you were the Attorney General, what would you do in that kind of a situation?
Well, I believe that pensions are a property right, and we have to be very careful if you go after something that somebody's entitled to. The legislation is written sensitively in a way that says, basically, take a look at all the facts and circumstances, and reduce a pension or eliminate it as appropriate. My own view is that you should take a look at when the corruption started, and mark it on that basis. For example, if you had somebody in office and they were a great mayor or public official for 20 years, and in the last 2 years of their tenure, they developed a gambling addiction or some kind of mental health problem, and that's when the corruption started. Those last 2 years shouldn't tar the first 18.
But in the end, wouldn't that be the judge's decision?
That's the judge's decision, exactly right, yeah. And that's why you have judges. They have the discretion to take into account all the facts and circumstances.
Now, you were the only statewide Democratic Party leader in 2006 who opposed Joe Lieberman and supported Ned Lamont in the U.S. Senate Democratic primary. Why? Why did you do that?
I felt very strongly that the war in Iraq was an immoral war. I was strongly opposed to the war, and I felt that I couldn't look myself in the mirror if I didn't do what I could to stop it. Joe Lieberman, whom I like personally and have respect for in many respects, was the strongest cheerleader on the Democratic side for that war. So I felt a responsibility to stand up and support Ned Lamont. Going into the race, I knew it would be a very difficult race, and that even if we won the Democratic primary, which we did, of course, that we would face Lieberman, I was sure, in the fall as an independent, and I thought that Joe would probably win that race, as he did. But I did feel that responsibility to stand up for my beliefs.
Who are you supporting for governor?
I'm actually very, very good friends with both Dan Malloy and Ned Lamont. On primary night in 2006, I left Ned's victory party and went to Dan's lost by a little bit party, and I said to Dan, hey, you should run again for governor in 4 years, and I'll help you. So I made a commitment to Dan long before Ned had considered the race, and Ned understands that, and we remain quite close, and we actually talk several times a week.
Now, there's a movement afoot, I'm sure you've heard of the group, the Connecticut Citizens for Ballot Initiative, led by a former state representative, a Democrat, John Woodcock, attempting to get candidates on the record where they stand on initiative and referendum in the state of Connecticut. What's your position on that issue?
I look at states like California that have strong ballot initiatives generally available, and